Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I'm with Liz Trotter. Mike Callahan is our guest today, and this is Smart Business Moves.
Woohoo!
I
Happy
take a week
Valentine's
off
Day,
and
everybody.
basically just fall apart, don't I?
Tom, I really can't, I can barely even notice it because you do it so seldom in comparison to me. It seems a non-event for me.
No better than that. Mike, how the heck are you?
Good, Tom. Good to see you virtually here. And Liz, always a pleasure to see you. Things are good. Just been absolutely crazy grinding through Q1. Just like everybody else in the service industry, it's time to start hitting those numbers you put in the budget from late last year. So team over at SimpleGrowth is up to, I think, 25 or 26 full-time members. So it's been a good run so far. We're enjoying it and helping service businesses, especially in the cleaning industry, take their life back from their business, or hopefully avoid that happening through automation. So I think that's kind of what we're getting into today.
So perfect. And Linda is one of our strategic success members. She's, I think, in our express group. And right now, that is the wig that she's working on, is how to become more automated. She wants to, so this is perfect for her. She's gonna be able to get some great insight into what she should be doing.
Yeah, and I think that kind of as we dive into it, the biggest thing that we're looking at here, and before we go into it, and I don't know if anybody listening has heard the story, but I'll kind of get vulnerable at the beginning because there is a reason why automations is near and dear to my heart. Yes, we do help businesses do this, but if you're looking to do it yourself, I want to give you the roadmap. But unfortunately, after five, almost 6 years of college, all the classes I was taking through that whole journey, the fortunate part is I was actually building a service business full-time in college. I had, I think, 3 crews on the road, and all the professors and all the people that I thought and looked up to in the service industry were building businesses that I thought were really successful. The thing that I saw as a common factor is they were building these massive businesses as the one point of failure was built around them. So literally, if they wanted to leave for a week or they fell ill, these businesses would have self-imploded. But from the inside or from the outside in, you didn't see that. Yeah. So I built my business thinking like, well, I want to be like this guy or girl running this very successful business locally. All the professors in the college were running their businesses in these entrepreneur classes, showing you to build a business around yourself, the one cog basically that was holding the thing together. So literally after I graduated college, I had the decision to go the corporate route, entrepreneur route in the service industry. And I was probably making more money than most people would have been 4 or 5 years out of college with that service business. So obviously I took the entrepreneur route, but as I continued to do that full time, it really took a toll. So I was working at one point 7 days a week, literally 100 hours a week. I mean, it was brutal. So we had 5 or 6 different crews out with 2 or 3 individuals on each crew. It was daunting. So fitting as it is be February 14th, literally my high school sweetheart on Valentine's Day, I kid you not, came home from a work trip and literally said, Mike, I'm leaving you. Your business runs your life and I'm out. Never forget it. It was actually on Valentine's Day as I'm looking at the hearts in Liz's hair. So true story. Can't even make it up. So obviously we hit rock bottom, or I did at least, emotionally, and started after things kind of came in perspective, say, there's some things in my life I love. There's some things I really don't like. And unfortunately, at that point, I hated my business. I was a slave to it. Yeah. So I couldn't leave for a day or two at a time, let alone a week, or at the end where I left 30 days at a pop. So as I searched the internet, I found Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Work Week. And that's kind of when that started to happen. I found another automation platform. At the time, it was called Infusionsoft. Now it's called Keep. So with no technology background at 2, 3 in the morning, I went out and bought Infusionsoft. And I literally was like, I'm going to run this service business from the beach of Thailand and Bali. And I'm going to be, an entrepreneur, lifestyle entrepreneur. Woke up the next morning realizing, that's probably not going to happen in this service business. But I bought this, and I've bought into emotionally the exit that could possibly happen from the nightmare I was living for the last 7 or 8 years. And we went in and automated each part of the business, and literally went from 100 hours a week to 3 to 5 hours a week to an absentee owner at 30 days at a pop. So if you're watching this, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you're itty bitty at 100, 200,000. Or you're trying to break that million mark, or you're well beyond, it doesn't matter. Automations are not going anywhere. I was lucky enough to find them after that brutal experience. Obviously now remarried with kids, and life is good. But that was the thing. And that was kind of our passion with SimpleGrowth. And even before SimpleGrowth was a company, I wanted to help people understand how to avoid that pain I went through, or at least if they're in it, how do you get out of it?
Yeah.
So kind of a long story short, but I thought, well, I guess it's actually fitting for Valentine's Day to tell the story. But that's where we're at with automations, and that's how we got into it. And obviously we can have some conversation back and forth, but some of the things I want to look at is the main 5 stages of business, and what are those growth hurdles, and what is that pain point, and how can we use automations to clear up that bottleneck to break that million mark and beyond, if that's what you want. Or if you're a solo entrepreneur just cleaning residential or commercial places, that's fine too. If you still want to be on the cruise, not a place that I wanted to live anymore, but place of automation can actually help you at that stage of business as well. So there's different, depending on the avenue you're taking, automations can fit pretty much any size of business.
That's what I'm thinking. Even if people do want to, they want this as kind of a job also,
Yep.
and they want to be out in the field, you're going to have some automation so that you can go ahead and do that. So I can't see how automations hurt anyone at any time. It doesn't even make sense to me that it would.
How long have you been doing automations, Mike?
Probably going on, I'd say close to 10 years.
Okay.
So we were one of the first people, not the first, but one of the first early adopters on Infusionsoft. And that was just literally, like as the story went, it was just haphazard. I just found it, and I love that idea. So we've automated just about everything you can automate at this point, but we're always looking for the next thing that's going to happen.
To your thought, Liz, and I'd like to ask you, Mike, like over the last 10 years, how have you seen the technology change? Like, I'll share my theory, and you can let me know if it holds any water or not. That 10 years ago, I think that we would put an office staff together and put workflows together, and then kind of figure out what technology can we throw in there to make it a little bit easier. But I think the technology keeps getting better and better, and it's not optional. It's more of a necessity at this point. I think that we're to the point where the successful businesses are basically putting together their technology stack and then figuring out what staff they need to put around that to make it work.
Yeah, I think that is correct, Tom. I think the way we looked at it in the early days was what was the biggest pain or bottleneck, and we just took the smallest pieces and did it. But each stage of the business is going to have a different pain point. But as you're looking at software platforms, you've got some of the big ones, just like Made Central, where that's going to be an enterprise software. Well, somebody starting out, maybe a smaller one-person show, that may not be ready. That might not be the platform they can automate on and use as a CRM yet. And they may have to scale into that. So you may have, there's different levels of software for each stage of business. And as they evolve into that larger platform, you just like Make Central is you've got an all-in-one platform. So the biggest thing that I ran into in the early days before Zapier and that is we had multiple system chaos. So you had leads and clients that weren't matching up. There was a lot of double entry. So I think now with the new technology, that's where the new part of it is really coming in, is through Zapier or webhooks or parsing emails. There's a whole bunch of different things that can be done. A lot of that double entry now is eliminated. But I think that's kind of the progression that we're seeing, if that makes sense. But that's kind of where I'm driving with it, is you've got to look at a platform that you're here, and based on this stage of business, if you're $500,000, you want to go to $1 million, $1.5 million, you need to be able to scale with that, and you don't want to change platforms. But if you're just itty bitty and you're starting out, you're probably not going to be starting out with an enterprise software. You just couldn't afford it.
Well, I mean, kind of like if you roll the clock back 20 years ago, having a website was optional. Yep. I was like, I don't need a website. I'll do door hangers. You're not in business if you don't have a website, in 2022. And it just seems to me that, the automations and everything that goes around the technology, that you used to use have technology, and all your people in the office kind of used it. But the technology more and more is running your business, and you've got people that are basically just tweaking the technology.
Yeah, and they think the biggest misconception in the early days, at least, and now I still think it's to an extent, is they think when you go to automate a business, you're replacing people with technology. Well, you're not always replacing people. You're putting them on instead of the $20 an hour jobs, the several $100 jobs. And then it also is like really just tracking what should happen, making sure it happens when it should happen. So now the business owner can kind of come back and look at it a 40,000 square foot view. And the automation is going to tell the individual that should be doing the job that they didn't do it. If they didn't do it, it's going to tell them how and when to do it. So it takes the guesswork out completely, right down to maybe having videos embedded of like tutorials, how to do a certain thing in the business. And then it can escalate to bring an actual person in to manage something that's not getting done. So we're not replacing people. We're putting higher value, and then we're creating a system and processes that always happens predictable, that's not relying on a person to basically babysit or dictate what's going to happen.
But the job descriptions are changing as time goes on.
Yeah, the people are going to have to be more tech savvy, and it's just the way it is. And the level of admin, or even the level of technician, sometimes based on a mobile app, it's definitely elevating. The mobile app doesn't really scare me because millennials and all the new generations, they've got these cell phones in their hands 24/7. Like they're probably teaching some of the business owners how to use the app. So that doesn't scare me. But in the office, yes, there is a different skill set for sure.
Well, and it seems like now you have to have the tech to, speaking to Tom's point, you have to have the tech to be competitive. Where before it was kind of an add-on and it was a way to separate yourself. But now you don't really have options. If you do not have the technology to support your business, you're going to be left behind. You're not going to compete.
Yeah, something as simple as just pre and post service notifications. So one of the users right on your guys' platform cleans my house. So I get a text message or an email from Tina the day before she comes. And when Angelica leaves the house, I get a text message and email, depending on my preferences, that she's left the house. Yeah. But I mean, that stuff is now, it's commonplace, it's needed, but everything like this post-COVID world has been accelerated with instant on-demand stuff. So like going to someone's house and having to look around for a weekly cleaning or top to bottom deluxe, that's a thing of the past. In most businesses, speed wins. So if you can build a price matrices out, even with a high-low price range built into a software, and then have an automated follow-up to close that estimate, those things are going to, like, speed wins in that consistency. You could get away with not doing that in the past, but right now you've got to adopt.
Yeah, I see that as being a non-choice too. It's the way the world is run now. Back in the day, how the world was run was there was yellow pages. Everybody was in the yellow pages, like it or not, right?
Yep.
But now everybody's using some form of automation, like it or not, because that's the way you're going to, that's how you're going to win.
Yeah, and I think that the ability of that is to make it personal and not feel automated. And I think Tom had a question, but I wouldn't mind in a few minutes kind of getting into like what part of the automation based on the stage of business. Now, how do we actually make that automation feel personal? It doesn't have to look automated, and that's the thing that wins. But everybody's just the shotgun approach. You're actually alienating your clients or leads a lot of times, and that's the difference of a successful automation and a rookie automation implementation. And we made those mistakes in the early days, so I'm happy to kind of share those wins and losses and how we did that.
Yeah, well, let's dive into that in a minute. I just wanted to make the point that back in the day, technology oftentimes was intimidating. As you know, an owner of a business trying to run a business, not everybody has the technical skills. But the really cool thing about what you do with SimpleGrowth, Mike, is you've got a team of what now, 25 people, did you say?
Yeah, 25. I think we added 26 a few weeks ago on our sales team. But yeah, it's
awesome.
It's going on, I think, year 5 or 6 now. It's been a roller coaster, a good one though.
So Mike will basically do it for you. That's the other thing that's changing. You don't have to be, it's like, I don't change the oil in my car either, and I don't have to. There's people that do that. And this automations, which is becoming, the whole technology stack is becoming more essential, more necessary. You don't have to do it yourself. You just find the people who you can bring into your team, and they don't have to be employees. You can sub it out to other companies who do it, and they do it well. They do it every day for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I mean, I see that's the way it's going as well. You see it with independent contractors, answering phones and doing stuff like that, managed services. You guys are all over it.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, most people don't have the time. And the thing that we realized in the early days is kind of a sickness. I actually liked writing the marketing copy. So the call scripts, the emails, the text messages, all that stuff, that was something I enjoyed. But let's face it, if we're running a business and we're actually focusing on the mission, the vision, the values, the strategy, which we should be focusing on, your time's not going to be spent writing all that marketing copy. So what we did at SimpleGrowth is we realized industry specific, right down to like weekly, biweekly cleaning, oven cleanouts, stove cleanouts, top to bottom deluxe or deep cleans, whatever those were, right into the commercial space of stripping and waxing. We've gone in and wrote all the marketing copy that people can customize, but all of that is like a totally turnkey solution. And like when we talk about some of the employee automations, literally down to what you should be doing on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And then you kind of customize it to your business and your workflow.
Walk us through some of that, Mike. What type of automations are we talking about?
Yeah, well, just to hit on it, Tom, just to kind of like a framework is what we started in the automation. So if you're doing this yourself, this is really important because it's not a one size fits all. So what I learned in the early days was life cycle marketing. So as you're looking at a business, there's basically 5 stages of growth. The first stage of growth, I like to say 1A and 1B, and that's your solopreneur. So the first person kind of is working part-time and they're working for somebody else. And then that's stage 1A. And then basically stage 1B is you've kind of said, you know what, I'm not working for the man anymore. They're making all this money off me. I'm going to start my own business. And that's what I'm going to do. But really stage 1A, your biggest hurdle to your business is time because it's only a part-time gig at night or on the weekends. Stage 1B, when you've gone by yourself, your biggest pain point is how to gather leads. That's your pain point. And that's going to be running up probably, up to about probably just under 100,000 a year. Then you go stage number 2, your biggest problem now is sales. And then stage number 3, you're going to be going in and looking at marketing and service. That's your next hurdle. Stage 4 is going to create your people and systems. And stage number 5 is basically that $3 to $10 million business where leadership and culture and replicating the leadership and mission and vision and values throughout the organization, kind of replicating that owner. So as you're looking at those different areas of like starting to run and sprint to break $1 million and beyond, there's specific pain points that were in there. So the first one you saw as we're getting into stage 2, when you're an actual legit business, probably doing 200 plus, is your sales system. So that's the first place I recommend looking at. So to answer your question, Tom, we want to take a look at it from basically left to right. So lead acquisition, they're coming in from your website, they're calling, they're texting. We want to be able to go in and get their information through in the CRM, the customer relationship management software like Made Central. So we want to get their name, address, what service they're interested in, whether it's automated or manual. But now they're in the system. We're checking for duplication if they're already in the system. We want to know what service they're interested in. Is it a weekly cleaning? Is it a one-time deep clean, a move in, move out? So once we've gone and got that, we want to educate them to the service. So I know, I think out in Vegas for the last conference there for the cleaning industry, Marcus Sheridan was one of the keynotes. So Marcus was doing the same exact thing in his business that I was doing about the same time. He was on HubSpot. I was on Infusionsoft. But we're talking about they ask, you answer. We're educating. We're addressing the concerns of the consumer before they happen. So we're overcoming those sales objections and creating value. So we want to talk specifically at that point, our pre-estimate education or nurture. Now, if we're doing live quotes over the phone or off the website, we can have this run in conjunction. But the whole idea is we want to educate them how a cleaning professional does it and overcome any commonly asked questions or concerns. Do I need to be home to have the house cleaned? Certain insurance I should be asking for. And based on that, if we're doing a one-time deep clean with a recurring clean, we may talk about the differences of what's included. So are we wiping down the blinds with a microfiber on the deep clean versus our regular clean might just be hitting it with a feather duster? But what's included, what's not included. So by the time they see that quote, there's a perceived value. You can charge the highest price in your market, and any of those questions or concerns that elongates the sales process. We've already addressed them up front, like Marcus talked about in his talks, and we've shortened that sales cycle. So now they've got this bid. Hopefully they accept that bid live over the phone or click that email. But if they don't, this is a process that we call 20 days to close. So we follow up in each and every estimate, personalized. And once again, the pre-estimate nurture was personalized to the specific service they're interested in. It's not a generic conversation. But we're going to follow up through omni-channel marketing. And what that means very simply is we're going to follow up over different communication channels. So the ones right now on all the biggest platforms is going to be email, text messaging, and yes, phone calls. So phone calls are going to be assigned as a task or a to-do or a ticket, depending on the platform. That's going to be complete with a call script. And it'd be literally on day 3, call Mrs. Smith back regarding her deep clean estimate. If she says yes, do this in the system. If she says no, do this in the system. If she says your price is too high or has price objections, all that sales script is built into that. And that can be tracked if your office admin actually does that or doesn't do that, and then we can filter down through some reporting. But the idea is we're going to be creating accountability and delegate a predictable system of email, text, and phone calls. And that combination is where we see closing ratios sometimes double in people's businesses if they just start using automations. So up to that point, guys, before I go crazy here, any questions or concerns kind of in the beginning of that sales cycle up to we win or lose that estimate?
I'm glad you took a breath, Mike, and then asked the question because you talked really fast. There are very few people that I can't interrupt, but you're right up there. That's for darn sure.
Well, there's a short list. There's a couple more, but we're not going to get into that at the moment.
There's very few. I'm pretty good at interrupting people, so that was really good. I do have a couple of questions.
Yep.
So one thing that I think might be a misnomer for people is when they're thinking about automation, they think that they don't have to do anything. But that's not necessarily what automation is, right? There might be some stuff.
Those human interactions still need to happen, but you don't have to tell somebody to do it. And oh, by the way, if it doesn't happen, the automation, if it's built correctly, should probably tell you it didn't happen so you can intervene. So
it's a lot to do with management of the people that are doing it versus just doing it themselves. It's not a matter of just, okay, I've set it up and now I don't have to do anything. And now I'm just going to go live, in Aruba now. Right.
Yep.
And I'm never going to look at anything ever again, because if that was the case, there would be no reason. Nobody would have businesses. Nobody would be doing anything. We'd all live in Aruba, right? It'd be really crowded there. But there's still a human element that needs to happen. Right.
Yeah, there is. And you hit on it, Liz. So so we're looking at the sales portion right now.
Yeah.
The next piece, which I think you kind of alluded to, is employee systems. And then the next step is our repetitive tasks. So there's actually 3 parts that go. It's kind of why I talked about those 5 stages of business.
Yeah.
Because we need to automate them kind of in progression.
Okay.
And when we start talking about the employee automations or the repetitive tasks, eventually you can become that absentee owner because all those things have been delegated. And the things you're supposed to do, the automation tells you for accountability too.
Okay. So the automations still aren't going to replace the people. We're still going to have people in our business.
We still need people. Exactly.
Right. People are still going to be doing the work. The automation is just managing the people, saying, this is what needs to be done. Here's your task. I'm checking in. You didn't do it, or you did do it. It's tracking, it's measuring. A little bit of AI in there, maybe, like I know Tom's looking forward to.
But,
yeah, I mean,
we're not talking autonomy. I mean, it's not like just turn the machine on and walk away. And there's still people involved, but their roles are different. And I guess the automation, we can go down the whole economic thing of return on human capital and the bill rates per hour that service company gets pretty low, house cleaning lower than most. So you really have to get as much juice as you can out of everybody you have in your indirect labor being part of that. The the automations give you the ability to get more value out of those payroll dollars.
Yeah, and Tom, you hit on it. So literally, so the next step, once we actually win that client, this is where the beauty of it happens, because you can go in, you can welcome them, you can wow them, but really we're going to send this email out or text message acclimating them what to expect when working with your company. If there's a credit card on file required, we get a PCI compliant credit card form on there. We get that on. And then we're looking at client cancellation. So usually if you keep that reoccurring cleaning client for the first 90 days, they're going to be with you for a while. Yeah. So we're going to go through a 30, 60, and 90 day basically touch base. It looks like it's personalized from your office, and literally just saying touching base like, hey, Liz, how's the cleaning? Just touching base. They think it's actually a personal email from somebody from your office, but it isn't. It's automated. So we're going to get those issues taken care of. So like on a normal cleaning, the person may write back like, Liz, thanks for checking in. Your cleaner is awesome, but occasionally she or he is not wiping down the tiles in the master bathroom. Yeah. That could be an issue after a while. So we're addressing it. Then we're going in and actually nurturing through a monthly communication, like a newsletter, but it's really educational. And then the secret that we found, especially in the cleaning industry, is to segment your database. So this is a segmentation, not necessarily AI, but through tagging and client and leads, we're able to have a separate communication once a month to just our clients and our leads. So maybe we're running a promotion. We don't want to say, hey, it's going to be 10% off your first cleaning to our clients.
Yeah.
But we may want to our leads that haven't committed yet. So we're able to have separate communication and promotions based on client and lead, based on that client life cycle. And then you talked about building higher value, Tom. So this is where we roll into the upsell automations, I like to call them. So the first thing we always do in a cleaning company is a one-time to reoccurring. So obviously a move out isn't going to be appropriate for a follow-up, but a move in or a deep clean, if they haven't in 5 to 7 days signed up for a recurring weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly clean, the automation is going to kick in and speak specifically to the service they had. And like, hey, let's get you on a reoccurring cleaning here. And we just had one go out this morning. We had a new automation client who does residential cleaning. Well, she had 25 or 26 basically acceptances for deep cleans from her reoccurring weekly or biweekly cleanings. So it was an upsell, and every once a year, twice a year, you should probably get that deep clean to make sure everything is done that the reoccurring cleaning isn't had. She actually called the office this morning and was like, I think this is broke. I don't understand. We're like, well, no, you reached out and she had a price range for every house under like 1,500 square feet. She had a price range. So it was literally somebody's clicking on a button. Yes, sign me up for the deep clean. We went through and, it was just like, oh my God, now how am I going to staff 22 or 25 deep cleans here in the next month? But that's kind of what happens, because when we get really busy, we forget to do those things. So we're going to go out and do a one-time to reoccurring. And then just like that deep clean example, we're going to go out systematically throughout the year and upsell reoccurring services or one-time service in addition to the recurring to start raising that client lifetime value. So if you figure her normal deep clean was probably around $400, times 20 people on the low side, that's $8,000 of revenue she just picked up literally over one email. We have a sequence that usually goes out over 3 times based on them interacting or not interacting. So the worst thing you can do is like, hey, if you want the service, sign up for it, but if you already had it, ignore it. So the automation should have some logic. Is there an estimate in play for it? Is it on a waiting list to be scheduled, or has it been done, say, in the last 30 days? Like, don't promote that. But that's the logic you want to build to personalize based on that life cycle.
So people can do this, is what you're saying, Mike. Absolutely, you can do it yourself. You started it. You
absolutely
created it yourself. You can take what you're personally doing and try to automate it. But there's it sounds like there's a pretty steep learning curve for lots of these little tiny things that you might not remember about.
It's the nuances. So if we have time, we're going to kind of talk about employee automations next.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the perfect scenario, and we'll talk about possibly some of the things along the way that you don't anticipate.
Okay.
But it's thinking about all the good things the perfect path, and where are all the things that could fall apart. And that's where, when you're building the automations yourself, when I first started, I didn't think about all these little nuances. And after a couple of years, we started to realize if we could start fine tuning these, then the automation seemed very personal, and it handled all the different things that pop up. And it's not if they're going to happen, when they happen. So how do we handle all these different things?
Talk to us about, so let's stick with the clients for right now still, right? Still doing sales, and we're, upselling, et cetera. So how do you manage stuff? I'm just curious, how do you manage stuff like, I'll give you an example. When we were, I'm not sure where we were. I think we're in Vegas, and they had a bot that, reached out. Hey, Liz, how do you like your room? And of course, I'm like, oh, they said my name. Obviously, this is a real person. I'm like, and it's signed like Susie or whoever.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, thanks for checking in, Susie. Everything's great. And then, I get something again the next day. Hey, Liz, just checking to make sure that everything's good. And I was like, well, you know what, Susie, I would really love it if I could get a refrigerator in my room. Right.
Uh-oh.
And so Susie said something along the lines of, yeah, our rooms don't come with refrigerators, something along those lines. And I said, I signed up for one initially in the beginning. Oh, no, never mind. I'm wrong. That was a coffee pot that I signed up for. Right. And so she said, Susie responds, and I still think I'm talking to Susie. And Susie responds with, sorry, Liz, same thing about the refrigerators.
Yep.
The exact same thing. and she said something like, we don't have coffee pots. I said, that's a bummer. Well, can you tell me where I can buy a coffee pot? Because I need a coffee pot for my room. Sorry, Liz, we don't have refrigerators. We don't have coffee pots.
Yep.
I said, so, Susie, are you a bot? And she said, kind of.
That's awesome. So one of the things is if you are going that way, have a humor. So like in my company, I had Bill Murray in the lawn care company. We had Bill Murray from Caddyshack with a hose spraying the gopher. And like we said, like, hey, this is an automated thing. My name's Bill, Mike's personal assistant. You need to answer a few questions before you get an estimate. But that's one of the biggest things. If you're using bots or any of that real-time technology, you should, have some fun with it, make it engaging, let people know that it's not a real person. That's not a bad thing.
Okay, that was my question. So you had said earlier to kind of personalize it so people feel like they're talking to a real person. But
when you have the segmentation and automation, yes, you can. But a live person hopping on that website, you have no idea. So if you kind of let them know so they don't get frustrated, you're good. But the key is, just like you guys talked about earlier, you can't totally set it and forget it. So whether it's somebody in your office on another monitor looking at it, or you have a virtual assistant, somewhere in the world, who knows? I mean, you can outsource VAs very cheaply nowadays, with some standardized FAQs and some things like that. You've got to have somebody at least manage that, because automation at that point, the AI is not there.
Right.
That we're going to be putting into a service business. It's going to be, but it's not.
Right.
So something, you still need that person. But if you hit certain points in that conversation, that bot should be raising its flag and saying, hey, somebody needs to jump in. You got a hot lead.
She's asked me about refrigerators 3 times now.
What's a coffee pot? Help me.
Help. Right.
Yep.
But I did really appreciate the humor. I did feel like, oh, great job right there. Just like, kinda. And then she came back with, telling me about, being a bot. And I was like, okay, that's awesome.
And you still can't have a coffee pot.
Right.
Definitely not a refrigerator.
Right.
But that's like, so as we're evolving this, but that real-time conversation, in my opinion, needs to happen, because people now, especially after COVID, want real-time interaction. They want to be able to buy just like they do on Amazon. And if we're going to compete, I mean, most markets, you can buy home cleaning on Amazon now.
Yeah.
So I
Good
mean,
point, Mike. I am curious about the changes that you've had to make since COVID with automations. Have there been many?
Not really, because we already had kind of seen the bleeding edge and done it enough. Okay. But the bots, like, that's still, I mean, Google just came out with a chat bot as well. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but there is some evolving technology. It's getting better, but it still needs a human in there. And you can build so much logic, but eventually it's got to be like, hey, hold on a minute, let me get you a real person.
Right.
But the ability to give a real-time quote, or at least get somebody from shopping in the middle of the night and getting them off, they've emotionally committed, and then maybe you get them an exact price, that is, we've seen a lot of good results with that.
Okay.
But it's not perfect technology yet. It just isn't. Right.
It's not there yet. But you also did say that just making a couple of these changes, a few of these automations, people are seeing increased close rates double.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, you got to figure, if you've never, through expansion or upsell, gone and worked your client base, there's a ton of money sitting there. And every time you do a move-in clean or you do a deep clean, if you don't have a systematic way of upselling them automatically, so you don't forget, like, you're just leaving money on the table. So
you do that alone. You remember.
Right, exactly. So now it just happens. Oh, it's day 5. They haven't signed up for a recurring service, or it's waiting to be scheduled, or they've requested an updated quote. If it doesn't meet that criteria, it's just popping in. And then that can be personalized, unlike that bot, because you know exactly where they're coming from and what they don't have and what they do have.
Right, because you have the information. Right.
And obviously, we've probably got some listeners in Canada as well. Along those lines, we also want to make sure we are CAM spam compliant. So email compliancy. So you need to be able to, if you're north of the border in Canada, it's a double opt-in. I believe it's up to $10,000 per incident that you can get fined if you don't have explicit permission at a CAM spam scenario. Now, CAM spam also applies to the States as well. Not as strict, but I actually do recommend, most of the laws in Canada, they're a little bit stricter right now, that we do adhere to those, because they are really best practice. So we're building automations now in Canada, US, the UK, which is England, as well as Australia. And there's different laws and different ways you need to do that. So, we've got quite a few clients out in Australia, and their laws are different. So you want to be aware, depending where you're living, make sure that you're being compliant as well. And you should always give the person the ability to opt out of your marketing. And if possible, depending on the automation platform, you should give them the ability to opt out of promotions versus pre-notification or post-notification. And with Cam Spam, they don't have the ability to opt out of your billing or invoicing. So if it's marked as, and it truly should be billing, but if it's a collection invoice, which we could talk about later, we can go out and those things can't be opted out. By law, you have the ability and the right to send collections notices as well as invoices and things like that.
Probably just like in the United States, you can send them on a certain schedule. You can't send more than one a day, that type of
Correct.
thing.
Yeah. And you want to get, it's a good practice. We standardize that, but those are things I think a lot of people don't understand, where we've had cleaning companies go in and buy like a list of 25,000 people and literally just spam them. And they wonder why their email open rates get flat or drop, and then they get flagged, and like literally their Gmail account for their business literally gets shut down. There's definitely rules of engagement. So it's really, we want to speak to where they're at in that life cycle.
All right. Well, I mean, I feel like best practices are always something that we need to be looking at and making sure that we're compliant and doing things legally.
Yeah. And there's some gray lines in there. So, I mean, but you definitely want to play by the rules, because you can hurt yourself and you can alienate your client base or your lead base really quickly.
And I heard you mention earlier about payments and credit card handling, and same thing there. You can get yourself in trouble if you aren't doing that properly.
Yeah, one of the scariest things is we see people in a CRM, no matter what it is, literally typing in people's credit card information, expiration dates, and the CVC code in the back in like client notes. Like if we walk into an account and we see that like more than once or twice, we literally will tell the people, you've got to get it out before my team will even touch it. I mean, it's that serious. But man, if that stuff ever gets out, you have a disgruntled employee, you're putting yourself at massive, massive risk. So PCI compliant forms, it doesn't hit the software, it's tokenized, and it goes out to your Square or whatever that is processor.
We're just popping you in and out, Libby. We love Mike too.
Libby's an all-star. Love what she's doing right now.
We had Libby on last week. She is an all-star. We love her.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing her next week at QDS. So that'll be good.
Yeah, we're all going to be there. Tom,
awesome.
You'll be there, right? Yeah, we're all going to be there. Yeah, I can't wait to do the Amazing Race, y'all. I'm excited.
I'm looking forward to the 80s party. I don't know. I can't lie.
My outfit is not amazing, but Tom, are you still going with what we talked about?
That's still kind of up in the air.
Actually, I do love yours if you make it happen. Yours is good.
Here's the skinny on that. My daughter lives in San Diego, and the only night she has available is Thursday. So I'm gonna spend some time with her.
Gotcha. All right. Well, have her dress in 80s clothes, and
you can bring her maybe. Maybe that could be fun.
Too funny.
Yeah. All right. So, Mike, what you were saying that there's basically 3 segments, right?
Yes, we've kind of tackled on a very high level. It can go a lot more in depth, but those are the main areas for your sales. And in the sales, we want to be doing NPS, like basically net promoter scores. You want to be able to automate that to social reviews. There's a whole bunch of other things you can be there, but at a very high level, that's kind of your sales process. Next bottleneck that we saw well before the labor crunch that we're all seeing was employees. So we grew so much, we almost went out of business. We couldn't find enough people to actually staff the company. So we're like, well, the sales automation thing works pretty good. What if we just flip it on its side and basically create a sales pipeline for employees? So that's literally what we did. So we went out and created landing pages and the ability for people to go on Indeed, Craigslist, Facebook, ZipRecruiter, wherever they were coming. And it would drive them into the automation. We built it out in English and Spanish. So we've got 2 different versions that we build now, one in English, one in Spanish.
Very cool.
There's some criteria to get through, but let's say Susie gets through the application process. What it does is it automatically either can trigger, there's 2 different ways of really doing it. So you can trigger the office to actually call and set up the appointment, or drive through something like Appointment Core or Calendly and actually let the individual book their own online appointment. Pre or post COVID, depending where you're in the world, like it's totally different, but some people are doing it in person. Some people are still doing it remotely through Zoom. But that can happen in person or not. And basically before they get there, the ability to send reminders of the automation. So like, hey, here's where to show up. If you're a cleaning tech and we require a driver's license, here's the copy or address of the DMV to get a driver's abstract. Maybe put some homework in there, so some skin in the game. And then the ability for them to actually say they're not coming. Because especially in New York with the unemployment, people who are just literally filling out these applications. And if you fill out so many applications and actually book an interview, it doesn't matter if you show up, you get your next 3 months of unemployment or whatever it is in there. So we had to build some areas, but it was actually cool that most people gave you the common courtesy that they weren't showing up. So it was good.
Yeah, that is good.
But once you got to that in-person or online interview, we basically had a standardized interview script. So we were able to create a process that could be delegated, and it didn't revolve around the business owner or manager all the time. But we had 5 or 6 key questions that we asked, and basically we were able to rank the applicant on an A, B, and C methodology. And then inside the automation, basically created a database inside the software that you could go back and say, I want all my A applicants with a driver's license or without a driver's license. So basically what you do is you created this qualified labor pool that you could search from. So if everybody knows, if you're looking for the position you need when you need it, it's too late. So what we're doing is going out 2 to 3 times a week, systematically and interviewing for every position in the company and creating a qualified labor pool based on a couple different metrics. And then in addition, we can tie into a product like Send Gym and actually go out and nurture those people through postcards or different things like that. So just like we're nurturing our leads, we really, if they're a good applicant in the rank, but we don't have the ability to bring them in yet, we're going to go in through some text messages or things through Send Gym, actually go out and nurture them and kind of build that relationship. And if we found the right applicant and maybe they ended up taking another job and things aren't good, but we're nurturing them, they're going to reach back like, hey, you guys hiring. So we're nurturing them like we would a canceled or a loss estimate.
Right.
Once we get them in there. Yeah. And that's something in the past you never really had to do, but now I think it's really, you've got to build that relationship, top frame of mind. And the next thing we did is once we get them in, all the onboarding documents. So what to expect on your first day of work, the manager, whoever's bringing them in, if you have like a special training kit you give them with all their tools and things like that, everything is now automated with a checklist. So now the business owner, when you bring the first person in or the new person in, you don't have to be there to onboard them. You don't have to get everything ready. Everything that should happen in that process is all lined out. And then we go in and get our tax documents, like our W-2s, our employment contracts. All those things are now through an automated process. So all those things are literally just dialed in. And then the final piece is in the automation, we have the ability to do online video training. So what I did in my business is literally created an online video hub for the office staff, how to use the technology stack with workflow and testing. And then what we also do is allow people to give us their videos to basically train their cleaning staff. And so now we've created this own kind of little franchise without franchise fees. So when I sold my business, the service business, the day I signed, I never went back. I literally gave them an entire workflow, how to onboard, train, and take care of all those different pieces there. So that was kind of on a very high level how we automated the employee process.
Wow. So all the way through the training. So like, do you have kind of a template or best practices to help your clients?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good products out there right now that are pre-built in English and Spanish in the cleaning industry. In the lawn care, where my first service business was, that didn't exist. But if you're going to make your own, I can definitely give you some tips because we definitely did it right and did it wrong. So believe it or not, a smartphone, a wireless mic that goes into a Bluetooth or even corded, a tripod, $30 from Amazon is probably your best move. We had a professional videographer that did weddings do a bunch of our videos. Believe it or not, the cleaner, more professional videos did not resonate with our team. So it was literally like our guys and girls in their outfits, their uniforms, and it was us doing it, and it was relatable. And I'm not exactly sure why, but those videos worked a lot better than the professionally produced ones. So I wouldn't say that you have to go out and spend thousands of dollars on a videographer and editing. You can literally do it with a MacBook or a PC relatively cheaply.
Okay, we have really unpacked a lot here. We've got a question here from Linda, and I don't know which one of you guys is more able to answer this question for her.
Mike is. That's easy.
I was just looking at it. All right, yeah. So can this work in conjunction with Made Central? I'm not savvy yet with Made Central and any other automations yet. So yes, I'm actually gonna be talking on a very high level about Made Central at QDS and the automations that are natively involved in there, and then some ways to actually build additional automations on top. But Made Central has done a great job natively within their software suite, so you don't have that multiple system chaos. But you can automate a lot of different things as far as estimate follow-up. Just like I said, at my cleaner, I'm getting that email before she comes and after she leaves. So a lot of those things can be built natively right inside Made Central. And we've been also working on building some third-party integrations with Made Central as we've been progressing. But
You're doing that, aren't you, Mike? I mean, you've got some people you're helping build
Yeah.
out more elaborate like marketing campaigns.
Correct. Yeah, we are. So yeah, and it can be done. So yeah, it's not as the technology evolves, it's working really well. We were working with Tom and Matt over there at Made Central. So yes, we are evolving and starting to go in. But before we put anything to market 100%, we need to make sure it works 100% and I can support it. But yeah, the stuff we have built right now at Made Central is working, and it would work on Made Central. But as we continue to evolve the relationship, we are building additional, more advanced stuff as well.
So this is bringing up a question for me that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about as well, Mike. So then how do you charge for what you do? I mean, do you like have different groups of things that you do that are certain amounts of money, or how do you charge for this?
Yeah, so kind of we talked about it first. Everything is in I'm going to use air quotes, done for you model. Yeah. Obviously, we're going to give you the templated marketing copy of emails, text messages, call scripts. That's all included. At the end of the day, you own those documents. You need to update and make sure it resonates the way you guys operate. But let's face it, most of us aren't copywriters, so we need a template to start working with. A lot of people actually just leave it the way it is. It works. Other people go crazy and change the color of the buttons and the branding and everything else. I mean, the logo and everything's in there. But I mean, you can go as deep as you want. But yes, we provide that out. There's basically 3 different levels that we provide: sales level 1, 2, and 3. And honestly, it's kind of around those stages of business I talked about. So you might not be ready for the full sales level 3 or 3 plus, but maybe your biggest problem is your stage number 2 business, and that sales problem is your issue. Or maybe you're a larger business and you're going out and we need to go out and build a team and create this reoccurring system where we go out, recruit, train, and onboard employees. So to answer your question, Liz, there's about 4 levels: 1, 2, 3, and 3 plus.
Okay.
Depending on the platform, we may be pulling in like a third-party integration like Zapier, or natively some of the stuff's built like right on Made Central. Some of the higher stuff we actually do pull some stuff out through some webhooks and actually connect it to a product called Infusionsoft Now Keep.
Yeah.
So the pricing is all based on the size. My team supports and updates all of it.
Okay.
So if there is an update in Made Central and we need to make sure the connection's working and it's working appropriately, that's what the team does. So we just make sure the automation works the way it should. And then if you need some help, obviously I've got the team on the phone. We've got chat support between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern. We've got a full built out team that just basically updates and supports it.
All right. And so right now you were just talking about sales, but you said that you also have automations for 2 other areas. One is, I think, employees, and then another one for.
Yeah, we call it repetitive tasks. So this was kind of my journey of like, okay, now I've got this thing pretty well automated. I've got the sales thing kind of dialed in. The employee thing's working really well. But now like we're at like 30, 35 employees. Now I got sucked back in and I'm like, holy cow, now I'm a full-time babysitter. If I don't tell everybody what to do, it doesn't happen. Like what, I just had this beautiful thing and now we've grown again. And now I'm fighting fires again. So with that, we needed to go in and figure out how do we go out and delegate it. So we look at like 7 different areas of the business, but they could be customer service, finance, the owner, quality control. There's 6 or 7 areas that we're going to dial in, but really the high level overview without seeing the flow chart with it all broken out is we're looking at each one of those parts of the business in the 7 core areas of what's the daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual things that each person has to do.
Okay. And
it literally, so let's say we have Dave as our salesperson and our commercial cleaning company. We've submitted this bid. Well, the next day, Dave is going to get a task or a ticket or a to-do, depending on the system. And literally it's going to say, call Acme Inc., follow up on this bid. Here's what to say. When you're done, complete the task. Well, by say 5:30, if Dave doesn't do his job, the automation is going to alert Dave like, hey, you're on the hook for this follow-up, get it done. And then depending on the severity of it, it's going to escalate to the business manager owner via text or email, depending on how they want that set up. And literally say, hey, Dave didn't do his job. This was supposed to be done. Now we need a human to jump in and actually intervene.
I recommend you fire him.
Right. But that's the idea. But right down to the business owner, when I was filing my monthly sales tax or quarterly taxes, I had that repetitive task. And then when Tammy took it over, I was able to just reassign it to her. So basically you're building, and as we all know, we never build a position around a person. We build the position with the task, and then we insert the person in. So the cool thing is, as we build these different repetitive tasks or positions within the business, as a business owner, maybe wearing 5 multiple hats. I may be responsible for these 5 things, but as I start to delegate, now with a flip of the switch or an email to SimpleGrowth, we just flip it and say, okay, now it's not Mike, Tom's doing this part.
So you log in the morning. You log in the morning. The first thing pops up is fire Dave.
Exactly, and that's your glorified checklist.
That's it.
And Dave's the first one out now. So,
so you mentioned working with like Made Central, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and also with Keep. Do you work with other programs like ClickUp, or like what other programs do you work with, Mike?
So right now we've got Made Central, we've got ZenMaid, we've got Jobber, Service Autopilot, and we're working in the green industry, lawn care, on a couple other integrations with the big cleaning platforms right now. Those are the major ones. And then some of the cleaning softwares that don't have pricing matrices on it. We're just finished an integration with a product called Compass Wave. Okay. So some of that can actually be brought into the back end of the software, so they can have an estimating tool with square foot production or size of bedrooms, bathrooms, number of people, pets, down into that dirt code. So those are the main ones we're working on right now.
Okay.
Or have integrated with.
Yeah, that's great. Tom, I know we're getting tight on time. Did you have a couple more questions? Anybody on the call have questions? Because I always keep going. Are you trying to pull up his website, Tom?
I am pulling up his website.
Okay, good.
Uh-oh, moment of truth.
So, well, we want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you, Mike, and how they can move forward a little bit.
So now this is a real person popping up here wanting to chat, I'm sure.
Nope, it's past 5 o'clock Eastern. Kevin's not there. But if you're down in the bottom left-hand chat, there is indeed an actual live person. So if you're a client between 9 and 10 p.m. Eastern, 5 days a week, we call it help, not support, but that's actually our chat feature through Zendesk. So we actually do have live folks. The Phoenix team, with the time difference being 3 hours most of the time, we're able to kind of stagger the team now. So there is actual help via phone from 9 to 5 Eastern and 9 to 10 Eastern via the chat.
Very nice.
If you're out there running a house cleaning business, and some of the things that Mike has shared with you, if you don't have those types of automations in your business, you've got nothing to lose by reaching out and learning a little bit more about it. You know, this is 2022, and this is kind of where it's going, and the competitors in your market are doing this. And like Liz said, this is quickly becoming necessary, not an option.
Yeah, and we're depending on schedule, I'm trying to finalize. We may be out at CBF Live with Debbie Sardone as well. So we are very familiar with all the top industry folks like Tom and Liz, and we do work with Debbie, and we've got like a business in the box. So it's all her production rates for CBF members, automations that Debbie has written all the content for, things like that. So we are heavily invested in the cleaning industry. So it's a blessing. Martha Woodward probably 6 or 7 years ago kind of pulled me in to the cleaning area, and it's been history ever since. But we definitely like working in the clean industry, and we get it.
And if you're interested, the link to QDS, I'll just drop that here, because that starts in like 7 days and 13 hours.
Oh my gosh, really only a week away.
Yeah,
I'm excited. First time, like literally traveling on a plane since COVID hit. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Tom, how about you? Oh no, you've just recently started traveling too. All right.
We were at convention in
that's right.
wherever. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. We're old hats now.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Mike, are you nervous at all about getting on a plane or anything?
No, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited. If you scroll up to that picture, Tom, I think there's actually a little picture out. You're missing on that. The other one actually up front is Matt Ricketts talking. So that's actually, they must have cut it off. So Matt is talking, and actually I have joined him. And like that right there is the conference room. And that picture is actually when Matt Ricketts and I actually did a shared talk probably 2-3 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a phenomenal setup.
In the very front. I'm cut off there.
over there somewhere.
I remember this event well.
Yeah, one of my favorites for sure. So I'm excited to actually get back on the road and get back in that cadence because it's been way too long.
I don't know. If it comes down to fun, just having fun, you cannot beat a quality-driven conference.
I tell Martha she's got to quit the QDS thing and just literally become like a travel agent or entertainment person. There is no other conference like it. Like she is awesome.
No. Yeah, she really knows how to, create a big event that is not just one-sided in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, cool thing too is that QDS event has been industry. It obviously it started with cleaning, but it's starting to get an influx of like lawn care and power washing, window cleaning. And I think that that's been some of the biggest learning curves I've had for my service business and as well as SimpleGrowth, because there's an interesting perspective between the lawn care, home cleaning, and pressure and soft wash. We all kind of do the same thing. We run our business, but the perspective on the HR and some of the processes in the field, if you can come to an open mind, like I've learned some of the biggest things from industries that I'm actually not in. Yeah, so I think that's the cool part about that conference. It's not necessarily cleaning 100%, but there's other heavy hitters from other industries that are starting to come into those events, which you can learn a lot from.
I love that about this event. My favorite part, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot to be learned by people outside of your immediate circle for sure. So
absolutely.
It looks like they're still taking reservations or registrations rather. So if you're interested,
no hotel rooms though, or not, you missed out on the special deal, and you won't be able to play on the Amazing Race. I don't think.
Okay, forget it. So don't even bother.
No. Register because you'll still have a blast. There's
worth every penny, and the after party is phenomenal. It's included, so she's made it one big bundled price. So yeah, definitely if you make it out, come on out. It's worth every penny.
Such a good deal.
We are at the top of the hour. Mike, thank you for helping us out today. This was good.
Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't expecting to happen on, but I think we did okay. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see both of you guys. Have a great evening, guys. Happy Valentine's Day.
See you later, everybody.
Happy
Valentine's Day.